that's numero 26, numero uno. And the only reason that matters, because you don't even have to go to reason number 2 or number 3 or number 1,000. The reason why there will never be a college football stadium in Tropical Park for the University of Miami Hurricanes is that the University of Miami doesn't want it. The University of Miami doesn't want it. So who is going to build a football stadium for the University of Miami when the University of Miami doesn't want a football stadium?
Wallet?
But Billy, when you say the university doesn't want it, who at the university doesn't want it?
The university doesn't want it. Full stop. The university as an entity. I understand it's not, it is made up of people. It is made up of a board of trustees. It is made up of a president and a staff. But I will tell you, the university as an entity does not want the stadium.
Well, why is that? Do they have that much of a sweet deal at Hard Rock?
They have a deal at Hard Rock, first of all. Let's start there. They have a lease. They have a lease they're looking to extend. All the talk of a stadium is actually problematic for them in their negotiations with the Dolphins and Hard Rock Stadium, because they're kind of like, well, you guys are going to have your own stadium. What do you need us for? So it becomes, they lose some leverage, and they run the risk of getting a shittier deal than the one they currently have, rather than a better deal. They need to extend the lease regardless, because there's not going to be a stadium tomorrow. There's never going to be a stadium. Why am I even talking about this like it's going to be real? No, the point of the matter is that, first and foremost, the university doesn't need a place that will be activated 6 days out of the year. That's the reason why we don't have the Orange Bowl anymore. The reason why there isn't an Orange Bowl anymore is because the last remaining tenant in that building was the University of Miami for 6 days out of the year. It made no sense to have that facility. The Dolphins moved. All of the events and concerts had moved to better venues, whether it was arenas or Joe Robbie Stadium. It completely outlived its usefulness.
So why hold other events when there's the Hard Rock? Like, they're not going to be able to hold concerts or anything like that when they could go to Hard Rock? Is that it?
No, what I'm saying is that, first and foremost, there's no reason to have what events are going to take place at a Tropical Park Stadium. What concerts?
Pickleball tournament.
Pickleball's coming up, I hear.
It is coming up.
Yeah.
It's really hot.
But yeah, I hear you. There's already like a world-class concert venue, and
we have arenas. They have football games for smaller crowds at Marlins Park, for crying out loud. So perfectly fine football stadium for if you need 20,000 seats.
The only argument you can make for it, in my opinion, is that Hard Rock Stadium is not available from like March to June because of tennis and Formula One. It completely occupies that venue. So there's enough. So like you can make an argument that maybe in those 3 months you can attract a few events. But
prior to Formula One, it was really only activated 35, 36 days out of the year anyway, Hard Rock Stadium.
Mm-hmm.
So there's plenty of inventory there. There's plenty of inventory at the, what is it called? At the Mierda Coin Arena in downtown Miami.
FTX.
Plenty of inventory at Marlins Park. Well, there's going to be a soccer stadium at some point, which is what seats about the same as Marlins Park.
Yeah, like 29,000 I think what they're shooting for.
There may be issues with certain events on certain days, concerts, things with lighting in the airport. I mean, that's an issue right now with even breaking ground on the stadium to begin with. But there's the University of Miami doesn't want a stadium. They don't want a stadium. They like the location as much as everybody likes to bitch about it. They like the location, which is basically in Broward County. It's right on the county line there in Miramar and in Miami Gardens. But most of their season ticket holders are from Broward and Palm Beach County. And a lot of students don't go to games anyway. So it's
their home schedule this year is awful, by the way. Woody and I were looking at it yesterday, and it's like Middle Tennessee, Duke.
All the Catholic girls' schools.
It's not good.
Southern Miss. But I mean, in some ways, though, we don't really have any like counter example. And so you're saying like the students don't go to games anyway. Would they if the stadium was closer to campus? That's sort of the math you're trying to do.
And Tropical Park isn't all that much closer to campus.
Right.
It's still a pain in the ass to get out west in this town.
Right. Especially if you're going anywhere close to game time. The traffic is just going to take you 40 minutes to get there.
Also, the University of Miami now, to their credit, is on the hook for a lot of money in the athletic department now. They got a lot of coaches they got to keep up with paychecks on. If they are going to raise money for something, mark my words, it is not going to be a stadium. They want discretionary funds in the athletic department, in the football program, that they can do with what they need to do with, which is pay their obligations to these coaches now. I think that's outstanding that they've made those commitments, but they do not want to have to raise $500 million or take a donation from somebody. They're like, listen, you want to donate $500 million? We could tell you what we want to do with it. They do not want it for a stadium. They do not want your money for a stadium. They do not want one of the largest, probably the largest public park in the Miami-Dade County public park system at Tropical Park. So we can start getting to the other reasons, which is the neighbors. The neighbors are livid about this idea. The mayor doesn't want it. Nobody wants it. But you don't even get that far without the university, which was exactly Howard Schnellenberger's point when he left. Part of the reason he left the university for the USFL was that he wanted an on-campus stadium. He said, you don't have a football school, you don't have a real football program without what is on any major college campus, the heartbeat of a campus. All the arteries, all the blood pumping in and out 6 days out of the year. This is what we need here. And he set out to raise the money, which you probably easily in 1984, $85 could have raised, particularly with all the cash that was in Miami at the time.
Yeah. Can you pay for a stadium cash?
You can pay the
down payment right there, man.
They weigh it by the kilo, that cash.
So Billy, if the university doesn't want a stadium, why is John Ruiz putting out renderings of a stadium in Tropical Park?
Rich people can spend their money however they want to spend their money. Nobody can stop him from that. But the idea that this is being championed by or by the university is science fiction.
But why has it always been viewed as a panacea, though, for the program, that, like, this program will forever change if we just got a stadium? Like, I've been hearing about UM fans wanting a stadium since I first went to the Orange Bowl in, like, 2002. Like, it's been 20 years, probably longer, of people just banging on about, if we just had our own stadium, if we just had our own place.
Yeah, they don't need a stadium. They've never really needed a stadium. Howard Schnellenberger was trying to build a vibe. You know, it was a time when the University of Miami probably could have done anything they wanted on their campus with the city of Coral Gables. They would have found a way to get the permitting. They would have found a way to get the money. They would have found a way to get it done. They knew just where they wanted to put it. It would have been real Orange Bowl vibes, and that there wouldn't have been any parking. You know, it would have just been all people just like hiking on foot. I guess a lot of Metro Rail action, which they were building right around that time. They were building the Metro Rail, and they determined that it would be about, what was it like? It was so much money per rider, the Metro Rail, that Ronald Reagan famously went on television and said about the Metro Rail in Miami-Dade County, that it would be cheaper to buy everyone a limousine than it would be to build this train. That's what he famously said. And that's also why.
So everyone got neither.
Trickle-down economics left us with no infrastructure whatsoever. That's all right.
Where's my limo?
Yeah, where's my exactly? Yeah, no. Instead, you got an overpriced Uber. But Schnellenberger eventually fulfilled his dream, his vision. It was a vision. It was a dream. This idea that the mystique of a football program requires a temple, requires this place of worship. He fulfilled that at FAU. It didn't create a winning football program.
Didn't create anything
out of nothing. They have a Chick-fil-A in there.
It is a very nice stadium.
Yeah. It's a great college football stadium.
Yeah.
It really, really is. And I love Chick-fil-A. Tastes great. But the University of Miami doesn't need one. They don't want one. They play in an NFL stadium, which I have to hand it to the Dolphins. Did a beautiful job on the renovations. 30 years in, they still can't figure out how to do traffic, how to direct traffic outside the stadium. You just
Despite the fact they have two major highways they can feed people to.
And off duties from every single municipal police department in like 3 counties, each pointing you in the opposite direction. Okay? An absolute disaster, logistical disaster.
There's like 4 different ways you can get out of there, and somehow it's impossible.
There is no reason for it to be like that.
I just think that it's 45,000 cars leaving any place. I don't think there's a place in the world where 45,000 cars could leave at once and it would be handled okay.
I just think it's because Miami.
30 years there is a better way to do it. There's
Probably.
a better way to figure out how to do it.
I've never understood, though, the push for a stadium. If any Hurricanes fan who went to, I'm sorry, Jess, Miami Notre Dame in 2017, there is no need for a stadium. Like, if the whole point is we just need to create atmosphere.
Oh, yeah.
Because the atmosphere is not good enough. It wasn't like it was at the OB.
Oh, no.
That's as loud as a place as I've ever been in my life.
That was as electric
if you have a
sports environment
a
I've ever
good
been in.
home schedule or a good rivalry games, or your
Or
team,
even just a
or
good
your
team.
is that's what I was gonna say. If your team is good, people will go to your games. People complain about the atmosphere at Notre Dame games all the time early in the season. It's like, well, we're playing Marshall, so it's not that electric of an atmosphere.
I've been to that stadium. That stadium's a shithole. I
Not-
got a splinter
no,
in my
it-
ass from
it
some
just
wooden
got-
plank.
It
to
just
make
got
all the
it
seats.
just got renovated.
Oh, did it? Okay, yeah. When I went,
Well,
it was-
so
I feel like every fan though is like, it's our shithole though.
yeah.
Well,
Talk
it-
shit about
the
my
Orange
shit.
Bowl.
Right,
I wouldn't
exactly.
call it
Orange
a
Bowl is a
shithole, but
dump.
It was
was a
older.
urinal, yeah.
Like the stadium was built on the skeleton of the old stadium, which is very, very old. And then in 2015, they started a new project to renovate it and turn it into a mixed use building. Because like what you said about the Miami Stadium being something that's used 6 days a year, I think Notre Dame recognized like we could get a lot more use out of this if we make it something more than just a place where people sit and get splinters in their ass six Saturdays a year. So they turned it into an entire academic building. They added, food options and stuff, and now students can go there and study. And there's a media center, and they made it into a on-campus building, an academic building, as well as a campus or a stadium. And so now the building gets a lot more use, and it's not just sitting in the middle of campus, being looked at the rest of the year.
In Miami, we like to build stadiums and things on top of the skeletons of Native Americans, mostly graveyards.
I mean, that's what this
is,
country's
is really
built
what
on.
But the FSU has a stadium. Doak Campbell has
Notre Dame modeled theirs
classrooms.
off of FSU's, I believe.
They had the film school in there for a while. They had sound stages, which are kind of useless for also 6 days out of the year, because it doesn't matter how much of a sound stage you have. A college football stadium inside your sound stage gets a little noisy. But there's no need for a stadium. There's no reason to have a stadium. The University of Miami doesn't want a stadium. They don't want your money for a stadium. They don't want you to. Believe me, the University of Miami would love, Jessica, every penny of money that is being spent on architects and renderings and artwork. They would love for that money to be donated to the university to actually help the school and the program.
I think
and the
Notre
athletic
Dame's was like a $400 million project or something crazy like that. It was called Campus Crossroads. It was being finished when I was graduating there. But it's completely changed the entire stadium and made the stadium a focal point on the campus. But when you look at something like this stadium rendering at Tropical Park, there's no way to do that because it's not on campus. You're still 3 miles away from the Miami campus, right?
And 3 miles in like the worst direction, too, west. Anybody knows driving west or east. Now, again, on a Saturday, probably not as bad, but we do not have the infrastructure, the public transit, the roadways to get people in and out of there.
Palmetto.
You don't have the infrastructure to get people anywhere at any time if it were 3 miles in any direction.
That is correct. And they don't want a stadium. It is a public park. It is a beautiful public park. It's probably one of the most active public parks in the entire county.
They have pickleball courts there now.
Why is this a thing?
All right. Election.
We're not going to talk
What
about
happened?
pickleball?
Yeah. What happened?
Nothing good, really. But what good ever really does happen here in Miami? That's not true. I'm being pessimistic. A lot of good did happen, and a lot of the races that I hope would go a positive way did go a positive way. Unfortunately, a lot of important races didn't. We talked quite a bit about the Miami-Dade County Public School Board races. I think I described those races as you having the option between a person who would vote to ban the books versus a person who would burn the books. And I will tell you that 2 of the people who will burn the books, not would, but will now burn the books, were elected to office. These were 2 DeSantis-backed candidates. He came in because there were 2 Republican conservative school board members who voted in favor of a mask mandate at the height of the pandemic when kids were coming back into schools in person, in class. The doctors advised them to have a mask mandate to save lives, to try to stop the spread of COVID-19. They voted for that, and DeSantis decided to punish them politically in a nonpartisan, supposedly non-political office of the school board, he decided to take political retribution by sicking on them candidates who are also Republicans, but extremists. Republicans who literally believe in the worst kind of cancel culture, which is book banning, which is forcing religion, arguing about restrooms and pronouns and whether or not slavery was a good thing or a bad thing or should even be taught at all because it makes white kids uncomfortable to learn facts about history. And so this is what we have. Roberto Alonso, zero education experience, a real estate guy and software developer who DeSantis had just appointed to the Miami-Dade College Board of Trustees to try to destroy one of our largest public college institutions, is now going to be literally a suicide bomber inside the Miami-Dade County School Board. Also along with him, Monica Colucci, another one of these Proud Girls. You know, Proud Boys has become a real bad word now because they're a designated hate group. And so now they have all these Moms for Liberty and Floridians First. They have all these bullshit offshoot groups that are basically like, they don't know we're Nazis yet, like that kind of thing. They don't know we're white supremacists. They don't know we're homophobes, Islamophobes, anti-Semites. But now they control the school board in one of the largest school districts in the entire country, over 300,000 students. And mark my words, in the upcoming months, they will fire the superintendent. They will start banning books. They will start... Already morale is in the toilet with teachers. There is a deficit of nearly 10,000 teachers in the state of Florida because they have been disrespected, they have been censored, they have been beaten down. And this Moms for Liberty organization, by the way, it's a political action committee, Florida-based. But there's organizations like this all over the country attacking school board members. These are the people who show up in the crazy viral videos that we've seen, yelling and screaming and harassing and threatening school board members. It's the reason why school board members are retiring. They don't want to run anymore, and we get these extremists in their stead. But Publix heiress Julie Jenkins Fancelli, this lady's nuts. She financed the effort against medical marijuana. She finances all the right-wing extremist crazy fanatical groups, including Moms for Liberty, where like 95+% of their money comes from this Publix heiress. So when you enjoy your pub subs, which by the way, overrated.
Oh, wow.
Overrated. It's just boar's head meat on baked bread. I mean, you get that any bodega in Manhattan. You can get that at any bodega around Miami, for crying out loud. And these tendies, can we talk about these chicken tendies? Latin House down in Kendall. Best chicken tenders in Miami. Fuck Publix and chicken tenders, okay? But right now, let me tell you, you spend your hard-earned money buying groceries at Publix, you are supporting right-wing fanaticism. You are supporting the destruction of public schools. You are against medical marijuana? You are against, of course not. Of course not. The vast majority of the state of Florida is for legalization of medical ANREC. We passed a whole friggin' state constitutional amendment for it, for crying out loud.
I mean, we passed a lot of state amendments that, you know, the state hasn't really adhered to, or at least tried to change.
And not only do they regulate them into irrelevance, but they also have changed the system to make it so that the people cannot more easily, by way of petition, amend the state constitution, that only the legislature can do it. So
ballot initiatives, yeah, that was a big blow because of the felons trying to vote situation where they placed the poll tax down on. You want to get started on
the 20 people that they found who were encouraged to register to vote as felons, who didn't understand what all the rules were because the state doesn't make it clear what the rules are. There's no place for you to go and see what fines you have outstanding, what remaining debt you may have. People were encouraged to register to vote. They went and vote totally in good faith, not to commit fraud, but just because they thought that, oh, wow, Florida's letting felons vote again because the people overwhelmingly passed a state constitutional amendment to allow it. And now all of a sudden they're sitting at home minding their own business on their way to work. And the governor's yelling about 20 people who accidentally, inadvertently voted when they were legally. They said, why were we allowed to register to vote if we weren't allowed to register to vote? So there's no voter fraud. The voter fraud's in the villages. The voter fraud is Republicans voting for Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis 2 and 3 times a pop, and voting for the dead relatives or via absentee. How about the voter fraud that FP&L is committing? Once again, another race, another story about FP&L running a ghost candidate to try to defeat a Democrat who was an environmentalist who was fighting for solar, which would cut down FP&L's bottom line as a legalized monopoly. You better believe that Ron DeSantis would be screaming to the skies and having all sorts of hearings and investigations if FP&L was interfering in elections with ghost candidates to help Democrats.
Mm-hmm.
And let me tell you, I would support that. If FP&L was intervening in an election, I don't care who they're trying to screw with and if they are trying to subvert democracy in a free and fair election, I don't care who they're helping. They should be called out. And that is the hypocrisy. That is the problem here, is that the Republicans, it's not sports, man. It's not, I don't care if they deflate the ball as long as it's for my team to win. This is your country. This is the future of your planet. This is the future for your children. And this is not just happening in Miami, obviously. This is happening all over the country. And let's make this perfectly clear about what cancel culture really is and what parental choice actually means. This is how they conceal this bullshit about book banning. And these are people who do not care about the quality of education. They do not care about reinforcing and saving our public schools. They are there to destroy them. They are there to privatize, subsidize, and brutalize. That is the mantra of the Republicans since Jeb Bush started to plant mines and time bombs in the public school system in the state of Florida. That has led to today, which will ultimately be its demise. And the goal is to create schools that actually do. Remember, every accusation is a confession with these Republicans. So when they say grooming, indoctrination, that's exactly what they'll turn these schools into. This is Christian nationalism. This is a theocracy. This is trying to create a generation of stupid people who will then, as a result, vote Republican. They do not want you to be educated. They do not want you to be open-minded. They do not want you to learn the truth about history. They want you to know about God and faith and slavery was good. And that's where the Miami-Dade County public school system is going.
It seems like, to me, you mentioned there was a real estate person that got elected to the school board.
Yeah.
So the entire politician base here in the city seems to just be real estate and racist.
Well, and I always say, sometimes both, one and the same. Because real estate in a lot of ways is about gentrification. It's about pushing out people of different colors and different nationalities. And everything in this town's a real estate hustle one way or another. School board is one of the largest landowners in the country. They can start knocking down schools, building charter schools. I opened up several cans of worms. Let's talk about a couple of them. The first one is this idea of cancel culture, the idea of parental choice. What that means is now these parents will have a choice about what your kids will read and learn. This is a minority of right-wing zealots, of fanatics, of racists, of anti-Semites, homophobes, transphobes, Islamophobes, and they are going to ban history, ban facts, and ban books, and lie to your children in public schools. And more to the point, they're going to defund public schools and misappropriate your tax dollars into charter schools. Privatize. You now have private companies. You have a guy in government who is the commissioner of education in the state of Florida. You're not going to believe this. His name is Manny Diaz. Not that.
The other Manny.
Not that Manny Diaz. The other Manny Diaz. He is on the payroll of one of the largest charter school companies in the entire state of Florida. So he's basically a lobbyist for them because he is employed by them to the tune of 6 figures a year. And he was on the education committee in the state Senate where he was misappropriating funds from public school education to charter school companies, including his employer, and is now the commissioner of education. This is a man who, when he was a teacher He was a teacher in Hialeah. You'll cut this out. All my little typing. All my little typing. Or maybe you'll leave it in. All my little typing.
We're good.
All my little typing. He taught high school in Hialeah, where female students have come forward to complain about his behavior and the way he talked to them and behaved in and out of class. He is now the commissioner of education, and he is a saboteur of public education in Florida. Privatize, subsidize means our tax dollars are going to these public companies. I'm sorry. Our tax dollars are going to these private companies to run these charter schools. Privatize, subsidize, brutalize. Brutalize means these private companies who are getting our tax dollars, who are now responsible for educating our children. There is no transparency. There's no accountability. What they claim is because they're private companies that they're exempt from public records. So despite the fact that they are replacing your public schools, despite the fact that they are taking your tax dollars, they're saying, well, we're not accountable to you. We don't have to be transparent to you as a government agency or a public school would have to be. So you don't know that we have no hiring standards. You don't know that we hire registered sex offenders and pedophiles at your school. You don't know that this entire school is spending more money, putting more money in our pockets, the people who run the charter school companies, than we are investing in your child's education, which is why there's no security at the school, which is why there's no qualified teachers at the school. Brutalize without accountability. So that is the future of education here. You have Ron DeSantis, who wants to further destroy the morale of teachers and the quality of your child's education by wanting unqualified teachers to be able to teach in schools. A lot of these come from a germ of a good idea, like naming parental choice, something called parental choice, and then it actually being depriving parents of a choice. He had an idea that when veterans return home from their service to this country, in this case, returning home from the longest war in the history of this country, that thanks to President Joe Biden is over. They need work. We do not treat our veterans well after they get back from war. We spend a lot of money to keep them at war, but do not take care of them when they come back, whether that's the VA, whether that's job training or opportunities. And what Ron DeSantis wants to happen is he wants veterans and their spouses to be able to basically take a little training course for a few hours and then become a public school teacher. That is not how this works. You have teachers who go through school and training for years, get master's degrees. You have veterans who have done that in the state of Florida, gone through the process of getting their education and proper teacher certification, not just took some nominal like comedy traffic school class, okay? And they say nobody should become a teacher in the state of Florida because it is the least respected, least compensated based on the amount of hours and work and the importance of their job. And that's the thing, too, is that parents, the PTSA can't pick up the slack here because parents, especially in Miami-Dade County, a lot of what public school and school in general, private or otherwise, is childcare. Let's be honest. People need a place to put their kids for hours out of the day is the bottom line. Okay, education is practically the icing on the cake at that point. But people work so hard in what is now the least affordable city in the entire country. You got to go to your first, second, third, and fourth job in this town. You don't have time to get involved in your kid's school and realize that they're being lied to and indoctrinated, and that everything the Constitution and the law says is not supposed to happen in a public school is going to start happening in a public school. That is for as long as your public school is still open. And therein lies the problem. That you have to remember, these culture wars that they're fighting in the public schools are fucking ghosts. They do not exist. This is some Pizzagate QAnon bullshit. All of these things, the CRT in kindergarten and the LGBTQIA issues, these things are not being taught in any curriculum. And when you ban these things from even being able to be discussed, you have teachers who can't have their wedding pictures or pictures of their families on their desk because they could get fired for it. One teacher quit. This teacher in Florida teaches special needs kids for decades of his life. And in preparation for the school year, he hung up pictures on the wall of Black American heroes. Martin Luther King, Colin Powell. And someone came in and took it down off his wall and said it was not age appropriate under new Florida law. And he said, fuck this, I'm out, and quit. Who's going to come in and teach those special needs kids now? This guy's a veteran public school teacher, taking probably a job that is so hard that a lot of people don't want to do it, even who are educators. And he said, that's it for me. I'm out.
Apparently veterans, they're going to come in and teach these special needs kids now, according to Ron DeSantis.
But they're not qualified to teach. That's the problem. They're not. This guy not only was educated to be an educator and got his degrees and fulfilled the qualifications for such, but was a veteran of the public school systems in Florida for decades. Where do you get that kind of wisdom and experience? Well, you don't, because no one wants to teach in the state of Florida as they shouldn't. So what we saw in Miami-Dade County is what will effectively be the death of the public school system, a system in which, incidentally, I am a product of. I am a graduate of the Miami-Dade County Public Schools. I started back when it was only called Dade County DCPS, and a graduate of the University of Miami. I'm basically a functioning illiterate, Roy, is what I am.
Yeah.
There was some good shit, though, that came out of the election. Wasn't all just the death of public education.
I believe it when I see it.
Although that's problematic, because you're not going to raise a generation of informed people or voters, which is exactly how Republicans want you.
Yep, that's the goal.
Dumb, 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 dumb. And hateful and spiteful, without any plans, without any ideas, without any policies. Solving problems is hard. Governing is hard. You know what's easy? Say you're going to hell if you don't do what I tell you to do. That's real easy. Putting the fear of God into decent people, into children. Tell them they're not loved because they love somebody of their gender. Or tell them that God hates them because they don't feel comfortable in their own bodies. And they have nobody to talk to about it at home because their parents are a bunch of hateful fucking bigots. So maybe they want to confide in their teacher, and the teacher has to fear that she's being recorded and she's going to get fired or he's going to get fired. And teachers are starting the school year scared for their jobs, scared for their livelihoods, and more importantly, scared for their students, scared for your children. And what is happening here? To galvanize behind a strongman, to galvanize behind not even Trump, but a Trump wannabe, Trump's Frankenstein monster, who is now coming back to kill the mad scientist who created him in Ron DeSantis. What is the appeal of ignorant fake strongmen, of men who will cosplay as jet fighter pilots, okay, in order to make you think you've got some strongman here? This is what happens in Russia, in Turkey, in Cuba, in Nicaragua, in North Korea. This shouldn't happen in the United States. People galvanize behind ignorant strongmen. And here's the thing about DeSantis. DeSantis is smart. DeSantis went to Harvard, for crying out loud. Talk about a coastal elite, all right? Went to Harvard, and he's manipulating people. He's taking people who grew up believing in the supernatural, who have faith. He is fooling them. He is preying on their gullibility, on their growing up knowing that you don't need facts and you don't need science. You just need a book that tells you how to feel and what to think and what to do. And believe in the supernatural because some guy in a robe standing up on a pulpit tells you so. And that becomes dangerous when people exploit good God-fearing people and instill them with hate and tell them that God means hate and Jesus means hate. And it means that if you don't believe what we believe, you're going to hell. Most of the founding fathers of this country were secularists. And those that weren't knew the danger of a theocracy, knew the danger of a church or a synagogue or a mosque or anyone infringing upon the responsibilities of a government. That is why the very First Amendment of the Bill of Rights dealt with not just freedom of speech and what we know is freedom of religion. But to prevent the government not just from allowing you to practice your religion, but from establishing a state religion, from forcing you to practice a religion. And that's the other point I wanted to get to, is that what cancel culture really means and what choice, parental choice, really means, okay? People who, for example, are pro-choice when it comes to abortion rights and women's health and bodily autonomy, they don't believe that anyone should be forced to have an abortion. They believe that a woman and her doctor and her clergy person should have a right to consult with each other and choose without big government infringing upon that sanctity and that privacy, the sanctity of the doctor-patient relationship, the clergy-parishioner relationship, and the woman and her body relationship. That it is not the government's business to regulate that. That is pro-choice. No one is pro-abortion in that we want to force you as a woman to get an abortion. No, we want you to choose whether or not you'll have an abortion. The anti-choice people would force you to have a baby you don't want, would force you to carry a baby without a skull, a non-viable fetus, to the pain and detriment and possible death of the mother. They would force you to do that. That is not choice. That is canceling abortion. That is cancel culture. If you have a library full of books and you say, well, you as a parent can help choose with your child what books are appropriate for them to read. That is choice. That is choice. If you say, I am going to ban books from this library because I don't want anybody's children to read them, that is not choice. That is not choice. That is overregulation. That is big government. That is the antithesis of true conservative values. But we don't have a conservative party anymore. There are no conservatives. The lunatics are running the asylum. Every accusation is a confession. They claim that the Democrats have leftists running the party. Where? Joe Biden, the biggest problem with Joe Biden and his college loan forgiveness plan, I agree with the NAACP, it does not go far enough. It does not do enough for enough people to really make a dent and make a difference in enough Americans' lives. We can always seem to bail out a big bank, an airline, a sugar baron, farmers, sports team owners, but we can't subsidize students. We can't get people better educated. People who choose to go to school shouldn't have the opportunity to go to school because they don't have generational wealth, because they have to take out obscene loans to pay obscene college tuition in order to try to better their lives and do better than their parents' generation and their grandparents' generation. It's not enough. So people would argue that Biden is too centrist. There's nothing socialist or communist about him. That's the other problem, too. What is socialist? What is this?
Dog whistle.
Community? That's the thing about people moving to Florida right now. They're pretty transparent about it. They're moving here so they don't have to pay state income tax. And some of them are only moving here for 6 months and a day and then going back to New York or wherever else just so they don't have to pay state income tax.
Mm.
So basically what they're saying is, I'm coming here to not be a part of community. I'm coming here to not be a contributing member of society. I believe that I was born in a country that gave me extraordinary opportunity. And with that opportunity, I have had some modicum of success with my life. My country asks very little of me other than to basically go to jury duty and pay my taxes. Follow some, stop when the light's red and go when the light's green. Sometimes reasonable laws and regulations. Sometimes, unless you live in the city of Miami. But I pay my taxes. I pay my taxes not happily, because obviously you'd prefer to pay, work for fewer months out of the year for the government than you do for yourself and your family. But you do it proudly because you say, hey, I was lucky enough to be born here. I'm lucky enough to live here. I was lucky enough to move here as an immigrant and have the opportunity to make something of my life, to generate revenue, to become a success for me and my family, and then to think that that is all yours. All of it. 100% of it, that you should pay none of it into making the lights go red and the lights go green. Paying to defend the country with a military. Paying for police. Paying for garbage to be picked up. Paying for schools to ensure that you and your children are surrounded by empathetic, educated people. Which, incidentally, I'll have you know, successful public schools and the right to choose reduces crime and makes for a better neighborhood and a better community. But if you don't care about that, I'm sorry, but if you do care about that, you're a communist.
Don't forget paying for settlements for when police do something bad.
And paying the attorney's fees for corrupt cops and paying the attorney's fees for corrupt commissioners like we do in this town. Joe Carollo costing City of Miami taxpayers over $500,000 and counting in one lawsuit for one private outside counsel. They have like 3 law firms, though, working on these cases, not to mention the extraordinary, inordinate amount of time that the city attorney's office spends working on corruption cases in the city of Miami that takes away from the time and the business of the people of the city of Miami. But there's good news. I said that like 20 minutes ago. But there's good news. There was a referendum in the city. There's a referendum in Miami-Dade County in Florida's 27th congressional district. I talked too much about this race. Well, we're in that district right now, the 27th district. And it was a Democratic primary against Annette Taddeo, the first Latina Florida state senator, and Ken Russell, who was the deciding vote on the Mel Reese Shopping Mall soccer stadium boondoggle.
And refuses to come on our show.
I wonder why. You
got some free time now.
Ain't got nothing but time, Mr. Gasson. Days, months, years even. So, Ken, ¿dónde está Ken Russell? Where are you, mi amigo? So, Ken, I predicted last April on this very program, I said, there is a Marlins Park curse. Every single politician, mayor, commissioner, who supported the Marlins Park scam, none of them were ever elected to higher office. Some of them made lateral moves. Some of them were reelected to their current office, but none of them were elected to higher office. And I said, I wonder if that will apply here as well. Francis Suarez is running for president, El Presidente. Ken Russell decided to run for the 3rd time now for higher office, for Congress. Ken Russell, in his own district where he has served as city commissioner and still is the incumbent city commissioner for the last 7 years, lost to Annette Taddeo. Annette Taddeo got nearly 70% of the vote, 68% of the vote, 68% of the vote. Ken Russell got less than 26%, and he barely won like 5 or 6 precincts inside his district by like 1 vote or 2 votes or something like that. So people who turned out, his constituents who turned out, rejected him and basically said the last 7 years of his life were a con and a grift and a failure, just like I've been telling you right here. Ken Russell, his political career is done. He just doesn't know it yet. Believe you me, he's going to find another office to run for. He is just pathetic, and he's a narcissist. So he's found his meaning, and his meaning is running for higher office and getting people to throw money at him and tell him how great he is. Well, I did stop by his victory party the other night just to wish him bon voyage. And I think it's important that when you have people like this, these ego cases that are surrounded by yes men and yes women, that they hear the truth every once in a while. And they just don't want that in government. They don't want to be told how terrible they are. Well, I don't have to tell him how terrible he is. I think these election results speak for themselves.
Landslide.
And, landslide. Jesus.
Mountain slide.
Then. 40. I was never good at that there book learning. As I said, I'm a product of Miami-Dade County Public Schools. So
right.
I didn't know there was going to be math on this program. But you don't got to call DraftKings to know that this guy did not have a chance. And Miami is all the better for it, because what this was a referendum on a lot of the corruption and cronyism that goes on in the city of Miami. And the voters, to their credit, I often give the voters a lot of shit. The few voters that turned out in Miami-Dade County, what was turnout?
Yeah, that's a good question.
19%. Look at that. I think we did good.
19%.
19% of registered voters decided.
For midterm, sure.
A primary.
I'm sorry, a primary. Yes, not the general. For a primary.
Yeah. Midterm, midterm can get as high as 25%. I mean, this is the problem, too, is that a minority of people are voting for these. I mean, like, let's look at this. I mean, in Dade County, there are about 1.5 million, over 1.5 million registered voters. Miami-Dade elections counted 288,000 votes out of over 1.5 million. So you have races that are decided by just a handful of people. So really every vote counts. Well, except in that D27 race. I mean, it didn't really matter. It did not matter for poor Ken Russell. But you're right. See, Ken Russell's a lame duck city commissioner now. He could now do the right thing. That's what I stopped by his party to tell him.
You can still make a difference. You can still make a difference. That's it.
He said, "Are you here to gloat?" I said, "Of course not." I said, "Yeah, I'm kind of here to gloat." I said, "But more importantly, do better, be best." Like he's a lame duck now on the Miami City Commission for 5 months because he had to resign to run for office, and the date effective that he selected was the date that new Congress people are sworn in. So he's basically good. So whether he won or lost, he was going to get to continue to serve. Get very well paid and get his ego stroked to be a city of Miami commissioner for the next 5 months. So I said, why not? Why not be the commissioner? You've just wasted the last 7 years of your life. Your voters rejected you. This was a referendum on you. It wasn't just how great Annette is. A lot of people turned out to vote for Annette because she's a spectacular candidate in this primary and in the general. But they turned out to basically tell you that you're trash. I said, so why not take the last 5 months of your tenure to be the commissioner we've all wanted you to be for the last 7 years?
What was the reaction?
Well, he was a little toasted. I mean, he was drowning his sorrows.
Oh, I mean, no.
A little toasted. I'm not going to lie. It got a little loud, Ray. It got a little loud. It got a little loud. And he was like, he denied that this was a referendum on him. He just said Annette was a better candidate. I'm like, well, we can agree on that, obviously. She's also a better human being. But, like, I asked him, I said, he's like, well, what would you have me do? What would you have me do differently? I was like, man up, grow a spine. Don't let them walk all over you. Don't let them extort you into things. I said, what happened during the 30 minutes when you walked off the dais during the Mel Reese vote? You were yelling and screaming and hemming and hawing, and we're like, wow, this is the Ken Russell we've been waiting for. This guy's going to negotiate now. I said, you disappeared for 30 minutes. Francis Suarez says, we'll finance your bullshit, narcissistic, quid pro quo criminal congressional campaign. You can call it a campaign with results like this. But he says, that's not what, I didn't even talk to Francis when I left the dais for 30 minutes. I said, well, what happened? I said, you got nothing. You came back. You got nothing. He's like, I got everything I wanted. I'm like, that was all you wanted? You were the deciding vote on a multi-billion-dollar real estate transaction, and you got $5 million for a Baywalk that's going to cost $100 million? This is what you get when you have a yo-yo champion and surfboard salesman negotiating the biggest real estate deal in the history of Miami. You get nothing. And he still is defending it. He's still saying that was a good vote. I got everything I wanted. I was like, then you didn't know what to ask for, dude. Then you were totally outgunned and outmanned and outwomaned in this race. Because, man, did he get smacked down. But let me tell you something. Ken Russell never misses an opportunity to miss an opportunity. He's bought and paid for, and he's finished. He is finished. Will he run again?
That's a win for us.
What is it?
It's a win for us.
It's a win for it's a rare win. A rare win. And the cease and desist letter.
Oh, yeah. We got a couple of wins out of that one. Yeah,
2 weeks in a row. 2 weeks in a row. Got a couple wins.
Any other wins on the ballot?
Yeah, there were a lot of good wins. Dottie Joseph was a wonderful state representative. I used to live in her district. She destroyed the competition. Chevron Jones, up a little further north by you, fantastic state senator, won re-election handily. Big win for Ashley Gant, who's a wonderful. There was a handful of candidates I said that like I'm proud to bubble in their names on my sample ballot, even if I couldn't vote for them because I don't live in their district. But Ashley Gant beat James Bush III, which is a really big and wonderful win for the people of District 109. On the judges, Lodi Jean won. Which is great. Fred Serafin won. We talked about those races. Those were the racist races, and it was nice to see the voters of Miami-Dade.
That's a big one.
Yeah, it was nice to see people see through that and understand what was going on there. There was a bit of a loss with Oscar Rodriguez-Fonts, who's a bit of an extremist. He went to a Christian Family Coalition event to celebrate the overturning of Roe versus Wade. This is Oscar Rodriguez-Fonts, and he was reelected over Jason Edward Block. So now we have a anti-choice fanatic on the bench here in Miami-Dade County, and that's not very promising for anyone who has to appear as a lawyer or litigant in front of him. If people paid more attention to these races and we lived in a town where it wasn't too hot to protest, you probably would have seen people protesting this guy, Judge Fonts. And that's a bit of a bummer, Oscar Rodriguez-Fonts. And Mike Ryan's boy, Mark Blumstein, lost to A-Rod, to Ariel Rodriguez. Blumstein was the dude in the military uniform on all those gas station ads.
The gas station
the gas station guy. Well, I guess now he'll be a gas station attendant. I guess that's what. Do we do that? We don't do full serve anymore.
No,
really.
we don't do full service anymore.
You moved to New Jersey and do full serve. That's
well, he can run up there.
He could run up there. So I did we do good news? I feel like we did some. Maybe we did some.
It seems like it's 40-60 on the good side. On 40-60, 40 on the good side, 60 on the bad side.
Yeah. I think when you lose schools, it's hard to kind of get beyond that. It's hard to overcome that.
Foundation. That's a foundation situation. You're dealing with the kids. Yeah, that's a big time loss. And
I don't know how you overcome that, because I think the damage that they're going to be able to do with a majority. I mean, you have some crazy people up there who vote for prayer in schools, who vote for book banning, who voted to end sex education in Miami-Dade County, where we have the largest rate of new HIV infections in the country, and we're not going to teach sex education to our children. It's a really interesting fact that's been going around, the kind of real history that you won't necessarily learn in Miami-Dade County Public Schools anymore. But this was a guy who worked with Reagan when he was the governor of California and really explained, he was complaining about free tuition for in-state students attending the University of California. And I want to find this quote, because I think it's extremely informative as to what the strategy is here and what the strategy has been since 1970. Later in 1970, Roger Freeman, a key educational advisor to Nixon, then working for the re-election of California Governor Ronald Reagan, spelled out quite precisely what the conservative counterattack was aimed at preventing. Quote, "We are in danger of producing an educated proletariat. That's dynamite." And quote, "We are in danger of producing an educated proletariat. That's dynamite. We have to be selective on who we allow to go through higher education. If not, we will have a large number of highly trained and unemployed people." End quote. The two most menacing institutional sources of the danger described by Freeman were obviously those two great public university systems charging no tuition, the University of California and the City University of New York. Governor Reagan was able to wipe out free tuition at the University of California. He's not just concerned about highly trained people who will be unemployed, obviously, because highly trained people can get jobs. They can get jobs as educators, in fact. They can get jobs as teachers. They get jobs as engineers. They can get jobs just about anything. What he was worried about was producing an educated proletariat. He was afraid what the people would do with facts. He was afraid what people would make of history. He was afraid of how people would react if they knew the truth. And that's why we only give you the truth here every week on Because Miami. Isn't that right?
That's right.
Cocaine's